Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Outback QB Daily on a beautiful Adelaide day. Sun is shining again. How good is spring? Even the winds have died down. Now, goodness me, what a morning of red zone. I got up early, so you don't have to, although let's face it, you probably did. There were some upsets, there were some blowouts, there were some thrillers. I've just seen Harrison Butker score the winning field goal for the Chiefs against the Bengals. The Bengals threw that away. They threw it away. They cannot beat the Chiefs. But let's go through some individual player performances. Now, remember, every single game will be reviewed on the Outback Quarterback main show. So if you're only subscribed to this one, and if you're not already, click subscribe. Make sure you do. Same on YouTube, subscribe. But if you're not subscribed to the Outback QB main show, flick over to there. Look up Outback QB or click the little Musclecat Media logo and you'll find the Outback Quarterback. We do 2 shows a week. We review and preview every single game plus some other stuff. Me, Hawley, and Doss, the 3 of us. We do a lot of work on that one, and we like that show. That's our original show, so get on board that. This is the Daily, however, and on Monday mornings on the Daily, I give you the juice-ometer. Who's got juice from the red zone games this morning? Who doesn't? Now, let's start with... Last week, we started with the negative. Let's start with the positive today. Aidan Hutchinson, 4.5 sacks for Detroit. Huge performance, obviously. Doesn't happen very often. It's only happened, well, before today, 33 times in history. 4.5 sacks or more in a game. And I went through every single one of those game results out of curiosity to see what the record of the team who had the player with 4.5 sacks or more was. What was their record? I assume they won most games. They did. Before today, if a player had 4.5 sacks or more in a game, they were 28-5, their team. Now, with the Lions lost to the Bucks, they're 28-6. But interestingly, the record for the most sacks in one game is 7. That's Derek Thomas from the Chiefs in 1990, and they actually lost that game. They lost by a point to the Seahawks. But Aidan Hutchinson, he has juice. What about no juice? Well, I said Terry McLaurin, scary Terry, not so scary Terry, for the Commanders had no juice last week. Still no juice. 2 for 15 last week. He caught 6 this time, 6 receptions. That's pretty good. Yeah, for 22 yards. He just can't get anything going. No juice there. I tell you who else didn't have juice, and that's the tackle, Broderick Jones, former first-rounder for the Steelers. 3 flags in the space of 13 plays today against the Broncos and negated a 51-yard beautiful throw from Fields to Pickens. They had a couple of connections that were wiped out by penalties today. Just absolute killers. Don't be fooled by Fields' stats. He actually played pretty well. It was his teammates letting him down with penalties, unfortunately. But in 13 plays, Jones gave away 3 flags, all unnecessary, and he got dragged. Christian Kirk, he didn't have any juice either. I'll get rid of all the no juices now, and then we'll go back into some juice. Christian Kirk, you got what we call a crimson on the Outback Quarterback podcast. That's negative yards. That came from, we used to have a green, yellow, and red system for our My Boy segment, the players that we liked. If they had a good game, it was green, intermediate game, yellow, bad game, red. But if they went negative yards as an attacking player, they got a crimson. Now, they're very rare, but he got a crimson today. -1 yard on 1 reception from 3 targets. And Bryce Young, I'm not trying to beat up on the dude, but there's no juice there. There's no juice between Young and those receivers. 16 completions for 84 yards only and an interception. Nothing going with the receivers. Tommy Tremble, their mediocre tight end, 23 yards. He was their leader. Adam Thielen, 20 yards. Deontay Johnson, their recruit, 15 yards. There's just nothing there. Let's get back into some juice because, goodness me, this is the one I wanted to talk about. Marvin Harrison. Have you ever seen more juice in a first quarter than that? Other than maybe Tyreek Hill when I think he had 206 yards in a quarter back in 2019. Incredible day that was. Marvin Harrison, after, we had him on the no juice or maybe the dud segment for our rookies in week 1. Harsh, but, he only had 1 reception for 4 yards. Today, he put that all to bed. What a way to show off his ability and his connection with Kyler Murray. 4 receptions for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. All of that happened in the first quarter. All in the first quarter. Nothing else for the rest of the day. He just put the feet up, forget about it, which is a bit annoying because I'd love to see him. As somebody said in my fantasy chat, he was on target for 520 yards and 8 touchdowns at one point. I want to see them just keep going. Just go to Harrison all day. Try and get him 1,000 yards in a game. But look, 130 and 2 in a quarter, that's all he needed to do. They thrashed the Rams. Kyler Murray has an amazing amount of juice at the moment. 17 of 21 today, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Perfect passer rating for Kyler Murray, plus just a casual 59 yards and 5 carries on his legs. He's a freak. All of a sudden, Kyler is a freak. This is what we wanted in his early years. This is what we saw glimpses of. And he played well last week and he played brilliantly today. James Conner as well. Speaking of freaks, this guy's been through so much in his career. Now 29 years old, 122 yards and a touchdown on 22 carries at 5.8 yards per carry. Just keeps producing. Is he the most underrated running back in the competition? I think he is. And Dennis Gardeck, the big Viking-looking dude for the Cardinals, 3 sacks. He every now and then pops up with a big game. He had a good year last year, Gardeck. So lots of juice. Very, very juicy team at the moment, the Cardinals. Just absolutely bursting with juice. Speaking of juice, the Minnesota front seven, or the players that they rotate through there, I'll name 6, but there's a lot that go through that front seven, the D-line and the linebackers. Ivan Pace, he's looking good. Blake Cashman, the recruit from Houston, he got a sack today, so he's on the board. Cash dog. Van Ginkel, another one today. Man from Miami, and he was in the votes last week. Pat Jones, he had 2 sacks last week, and 2 more today. 4 in 2 games. What a start from Pat Jones, the outside linebacker. Jonathan Grenard, another guy that came in from Houston, he got on the board today. And Dallas Turner, their first-round pick, last week he got a sack. So those guys combining, they're looking really good. They're looking really good, and they rattled the 49ers today. A young New York Jet, in fact, the youngest player in the competition, Braylon Allen. He's got juice, running back. 2 touchdowns today, 1 on the ground, 1 in the air, and 1 that sealed the deal, the win against Tennessee. Austin Seibert, kicker for the Commanders. They have cycled through kickers 5 in 5 years. Austin Seibert went 6 of 6 today, scored all of their points, and that's the record. It's the record for the Commanders. Most points from a kicker in a game, most conversions from a kicker in a game. What a day from him. Brian Robinson Jr. for the Washington Commanders. 133 yards on 17 carries at 7.8 as they get a win against the Giants. Nice little juicy performance from Brian there after not having many yards per carry last week, even though he got a few yards in the air. Malik Neighbors, 127 on 10. He looked good. Now, there was one moment in the game where he did make a drop late, but you can't really blame him. I mean, he was doing absolutely everything for that team. 127 on 10. He's actually got a connection with Daniel Jones, which is what we were so desperate to see for the Giants. They needed Jones to find something. He had a decent game last week, 5 catches for 66 in a game where Jones had a shocker. Jones was better today and he goes over 100. Need to make a correction. I thought I got it wrong. Austin Seibert, 7 from 7, not 6 from 6, 7 from 7. The previous record for the Commanders kickers was 5 field goals made in a game and he smashed it. He got 7 today. The most in a game is 8. So well done to Seibert. And he only got picked up this week as well. So there's a lot of juice. Josh Jacobs, he's a workhorse. Most carries in the league last year, 32 carries today for 151 yards for his new team, the Packers, at 4.7. So he had to grind out a big game today and an important win, and he was super important because Love wasn't there, so they relied on him more than normal. J.K. Dobbins, again, 131 yards from 17 carries and a TD for the Chargers. What a dream start he's had there. Long may that continue. And Quinton Johnston, much maligned. First-round pick from last year, only had 2 touchdowns in the whole year last year. He got 2 today, 51 yards, but 2 touchdowns. So well done, Quinton Johnston. And finally, this is a man who's got a lot of juice at the moment. That's Chris Godwin, 117 yards and a touchdown for the Bucks. Mike Evans was quiet, only 30-odd yards today, but Godwin stepped up, 117 and 1. And last week, he got 83 and 1. So in 2 weeks, he's got exactly 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a nice start from Godwin. So there's some non-juicy players and some juicy players. I like the juiceometer. I hope you guys like it too because, as I said, it's not exhaustive, but it's just the ones that I just pluck out of the morning's action, the ones that really inspired me and the ones that we really need to talk about because they're a problem. There are a few players that are a problem at the moment, but that's the beauty of the NFL season. There's always ups and downs. I'm sure the guys that, I'm sure the guys that have no juice today are going to be flying before you know it, but I'm not sure that's the case with Bryce Young. Poor fella. All right. If I missed any, podcast at outbackqb.com. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. If you haven't seen us on YouTube yet, Outback QB Podcast. Head over there. We'll see you tomorrow.